We're in a 2003 Jeep Liberty. We're going to go over different remote starting solutions I have for this vehicle. We're going to go over remote starting solution that can activate the remote starter from the OEM remote. Buttons are a little worn on this remote. We're going to do a single button where it just activates from the single button, and then we're going to do a multi-button one way where it's going to lock, unlock, have a panic feature, and start. Our 2003 Jeep Liberty is a black key Liberty. They can either have a black key, which means there's no transponder based anti-theft, or it could have a gray key, which means there is transponder based anti-theft. The way that the vehicle is done is determined by whether or not it has transponder based anti-theft and the features that you want to get. If it has transponder based anti-theft, then we will do an anti-theft interface up at the skim module underneath the steering column cover plastic. With this particular vehicle, we don't have to do that because it's a black key version. So when we get to that point in the video, I'm going to show you what to do. First and foremost, if we're just going to do a single button remote starter, we do not need to add any type of module to this. Okay, so we're going to start with the disassembly and we're going to install our basic single button remote starter. We're just going to add this to our keychain. When we're done, we're going to start with a single button. We're going to lock and unlock with our OEM remote. And we're not going to be able to trigger the remote start with the OEM remote for this particular system. Okay, disassembly is very easy for this vehicle. It will require a Phillips screwdriver. We're going to go ahead and pull the dash down, and then we should be able to slide it over and take it off, just like that. No tools required. This unit already has a remote starter in it. Somebody put this in. We're going to remove this and we're going to put our own remote starter in. We're going to have to remove the Phillips screws from the underdash piece, and we're going to take this underdash piece down also and remove it so we have extra room under here to work. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this system that's currently in this vehicle. Okay, as you can see, the vehicle is already tapped because it had an existing remote start system. I'm going to show you an alternative to these T-taps. You know, there's always a strip and wrap connection you can do. You can use T-taps. The wires are big on this vehicle. Taps will work. Or you can use one of the variations that I'm going to offer is the PosiTap connector. This is a toolless connector that works very well and is very easy to use. I'm going to just show you two connections with this type of connection or connector, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the job with the taps. But if you want to use the PosiLocks and you wind up ordering these PosiTaps from me in your kit, which there'll be an option to do that, you would simply unscrew the tap and we would slip the groove end over the wire like this, and then we would screw this into the wire. And it'll screw all the way down, and there's a point that will pierce the wire. At this point, we're going to loosen the collar on the PosiTap, and I didn't crimp my ends on this yet. They're only sitting on here, so I'm just going to pull them off for now. And we'll take, say, our 12-volt wire here. We'll have about 1/4 of an inch stripped. We'll go ahead and we'll put them in the collar on the PosiTap unit, and we'll push them in, and then we'll hold them in while we screw this collar down. This will lock the wire into the PosiTap. So this is an alternative to a T-tap. Very simple, they're reusable. I can take that off and I can use it again. And I'll just show you one more. We're going to do the second power connection with a PosiTap. Again, and there's different sizes. There's a large, a medium, and a small. These are large, they're yellow. So again, if we're going to connect this 12-volt wire to it, we're going to go ahead and we're going to insert the wire into the collar, tighten the collar down, and it will get tight, and we can pull on the wires and verify that it is in there good. Those are 2 connections made with the Posi taps. If you don't like T-taps, you've had a bad experience with them or don't want to use them, you can order this kit with the Posi taps. Again, as I said, there's different sizes. This would be a medium. Maybe something like the parking lights or something we would use this on, which is this wire. So if we decided to use the Posi tap again, same principle. Put the tap around the wire, screw down, and a smaller parking light connection will be accepted in the collar. Simply push it in, screw it in, and it locks down. And there we would have our parking light connection. I'm going to remove these tags for the time being. Kind of getting in my way here. Okay, so these are connections using Posi taps. We're not going to use the Posi taps. We're going to go back to T-taps. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to remove everything and just show you how easy that is. Just loosen the collar, pull the wires out, and we can unscrew the Posi tap, take it off, and it leaves no damage to the wires. Little teeny pinprick right there, that's about it. So we're going to take all of these taps off and we're going to continue with the job. Okay, we're going to start making some connections, but the first thing you want to do is verify all connections before you make them. We've grounded our test light back here. I don't think there's a good ground at the column, so I go back here to the structure of the vehicle, and we're going to test for constant power on these large gauge wires. First one's a pink with a black stripe, and we do have power here. Now the next one would be red, solid red, and we're going to check that, and we do have power on that one also. So we can go ahead and we can connect our 2 positive connections to these 2 connectors here. I'm going to make sure our taps are plugging in good. Okay. Now we're going to be looking for switch power or ignition 1. It's going to be controlled by the ignition switch. So we're going to put the key in the ignition. We're going to turn it to the run position. Our ignition 1 should be this red with a blue trace. And you see we have a light there. We've shut it off. It goes out. Now we're going to start it. It should stay on during crank throughout crank. So it does. So that's verified as our ignition 1. We're going to go ahead and we're going to connect to our ignition 1 with our pink wire from our unit. Okay, now we're going to be looking for our accessory wire. Ignition 2 is not required on this vehicle, but accessory will be. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the key in. Going to probe our black wire with an orange stripe. Going to turn our key on. And we're going to see that it has power, and accessory usually goes out during crank. It comes back on when you release the key. So that can be verified as our accessory wire. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to connect our gray Crime Stopper wire to this accessory circuit here. Okay, now our yellow wire here is going to be our starter wire. We're going to go ahead and we're going to test that. We're going to put the key in. We're going to put our test light on the yellow wire. And we're going to crank the vehicle. While we crank it, the light will go on. And we're going to go ahead and we verified that that is the correct starter wire. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to connect to that. If you do want to power up a second accessory, you could. I don't. But it would be this black wire with a white trace. And you can verify that with your meter or your test light. Okay, so now we're looking for the parking lights. It's either a ground trigger, it's ground through a resistance, or a straight ground. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect a straight ground trigger to this wire, and it's right here. It is green with a red trace. So we can put our regular test light on it, and you see it activates the parking lights. So that's how we verified that. And I've already have this harness set up for negative parking light activation. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug that in. If you have a polarity select wire, you must ground the polarity select so that it will put a ground on the parking light wire when it's triggered. Okay, so now we're looking for the brake wire. On this vehicle, the brake wire does come up through this harness. We're going to go ahead, and it's white with a tan trace. There's two of them. It's the larger gauge white with a tan trace. And what we're going to do is we're going to verify this connection also. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put our test light on it, and then we're going to press the brake. The light will light up. So we can go ahead and we're going to tap that and connect to it. The previous installer used the brake location up here for their wire. So I've centralized all the connections, so I would rather do it here. Okay, so we're going to put our violet wire to our brake wire. And we're going to make sure our taps always plug in and don't just go down the side of the connector. So now we're looking for the horn wire. Horn is black with a red trace, not to be confused with black with an orange trace, which there is a smaller black with orange trace in this harness. So we're going to verify that by putting our test light on it. It's going to honk the horn whenever we ground it. So we can go ahead and we can apply a tap here. Now we're going to plug our yellow horn wire in. Okay, we're going to ground our system. I like to ground back up in here, right here. So I'm going to do it right there, and then we're going to test it. Okay, we're going ahead and we're applying our ground strip, and we are fully grounded. At this point, we're ready to test our single button remote starter. Remember, ignition 2 is not used on this vehicle. It's not required. So we've got a remote. We're going to go ahead and we're going to press the remote and trigger remote starting. Now this is in tackless mode. The Crime Stopper will work in tackless mode on this vehicle without any issues. So that is our basic single button remote starter. Now I'm just going to show you from outside, and it will verify that we have parking light control. This is a simple solution if you just want to stay warm in the winter. Our factory keyless entry will still control the locks, allowing us to lock and unlock the vehicle. And the OEM remote activated part of the video. Okay, so as far as the OEM remote activation goes, the 2003 and the 2004 will need the optional relay installed in order to get this 3-press remote start. The 2005, 6, and 7 can be activated through data and do not require the optional relay. And if it's done through data, locking the doors from the switch 3 times will not trigger remote start. So if you're doing it through data on the 5, 6, and 7, locking the doors is not going to trigger the remote start. That will only happen on the 3 and the 4. We cannot get 3-lock activation on this vehicle unless we install a relay and find a lock motor wire. We're going to find the lock motor wire and identify it at the C2 plug on the BCM. We're up here at the BCM and we're looking for a black wire with an orange trace. Or actually it's an orange wire with a black trace. So it's a smaller gauge. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put our test light on the orange wire with a black trace on the C2 BCM plug. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to lock the doors. This will trigger the actuator. This is our door lock motor wire. We're going to connect to this wire so we can do 3-press activation from the OEM remote on this vehicle. Remember, this is an older vehicle. It's a 2003. So we've got our optional relay that'll come with your kit if you order just the OEM remote activated version. It'll be an actual option you can add on. We have a red wire on this relay, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to connect it to the door lock motor wire. Now we're going to have an orange plug on the other end. We're going to plug this into our remote starter module. And we're also going to require a ground. What I've done is I've put a tap on the ground wire on the Crime Stopper. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to plug this into the tap. At this point, we can go ahead and we can trigger remote starting from the OEM remote. We'll go ahead and we're going to lock the doors 3 times. This will trigger remote starting of the vehicle. You can also turn the vehicle off. But remember, using this method will give you 3-lock start, but if you 3-lock the switch, it'll also trigger remote start. And I can turn it off as well that way. This feature may be useful if you have somebody waiting in your vehicle and you don't want to have the key in the vehicle, but you want to allow them to have the heat. You can say, hey, when you get in the car, just lock the doors 3 times. And this will also trigger remote starting. Okay, now we're going to move into the multi-button. Now, this vehicle can be done without a module. We're going to use a module to keep everything simple. We're going to use an ALCA, and depending on the vehicle, will determine the configuration that this device will come to you. Normally, these vehicles have a gray key, and the later model ones, more and more of them do, and we would be going up here to the SCIM module in the steering column. With this one, we're not going to do that, but this module is already set up for that. If you did have that gray key, then this would go up into the column, and you would use this, and you would follow this guide for your installation. This one doesn't have the gray key, so we're going to not be going up into the column. And plus, because of the year grouping of this vehicle, it has what's called an analog lock wire. We're going to be finding the analog lock wire at the BCM also. We're going to use this chart for our wire color and location, and then we're going to find the analog lock wire. Another wire that we're going to be dealing with is the J1850 wire. It's down here at the diagnostic plug. So we're going to be connecting to that wire, the analog lock wire, and then we're going to be connecting to the primary ignition to tie our module in for this application. Okay, we're going to go over our 3 connections here that we're going to need to connect this anti-theft module. First, we're going to need a connection to the primary ignition. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put another tap on this ignition wire. The ignition 1 on this vehicle is red with a blue trace. Okay, so we've tapped that. Have a this is the harness configuration for our anti-theft interface module. We need our pink wire first to go up and plug into this ignition wire. So we're going to go ahead and we're gonna start from down here. Okay, another wire we're going to need is located at this diagnostic plug. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take out the 2 screws. Let's give us a little working room. Okay, now we're at this. Okay, we're going to cut this tape a little bit here. We're going to access these wires. And the plug has a cover on it, so it makes it a little harder to count the pins here. So we're going to pull out a couple pink with violet candidates, and we're going to test them. Here's one right here. Got a pink and violet right here. So one way you can find this wire is use your regular test light. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cycle the locks from the switch on the door here. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the test light on this wire and basically ground this wire. And when I do that, now I'm trying to cycle the locks and they're not responding. As soon as I unground the wire, the locks respond again. This is our analog door lock wire, and it is pink with a violet stripe. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tap this wire. Okay, and I'm going to plug in the yellow wire from our anti-theft module. And we are ready to program our module. Okay, our module is connected, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to program it. We're going to need the key to the vehicle. We're going to put in the ignition and turn it to the run position. The light will go red and then it will go green. This is an indication that it is programmed. The light will turn off. We'll now shut the key off and remove it from the ignition. From this point forward, we have multi-button control. There's our lock. There's our unlock. And we have a hatch release. And we have that releasing. At this point, we have control of our locks and our rear hatch from our aftermarket remote. And we can go ahead and release the hatch. Using the data module makes it easier for a full keyless entry solution on this vehicle. Okay, we're back in our 2003 Jeep Liberty, and previously we used an ALCA to do our keyless entry and our hatch release. We couldn't get 3-press through data, had to install a relay. So on these older ones, you know, I may offer the kit with without a module. It'll cut the cost down. And if that's the case, if you bought a kit and you're going to do the locks without a module, we're still going to go to the same analog lock wire here that we found when we're using the CA, but we're just going to use a lock harness with some resistors in the wire to control the keyless entry. There's different resistances will lock the door and unlock the door. So we've got our resistors in here, and we've got the correct values. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug into our lock port on the Crime Stopper. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to control the locks. So we're going to lock the doors. And we're going to unlock the doors. Now I'm going to show you that again. We're going to lock the doors. And we're going to unlock the doors. The beeping after we unlock, or the dinging of the chime, is the parking lights being held on for 30 seconds when we unlock the doors. That can be turned off through programming or left on. It is a nice convenience feature at night when you're walking to the vehicle. The next thing we're going to do without a module is we're going to do the trunk release. Okay, now to do the hatch release without using the module, we would be looking at this plug on the BCM. Again, here's our C2 plug, and when we look at the BCM, we want to make sure that we're referencing things correctly by, finding each plug. This appears to be a 26-pin plug, and I've marked the hatch connection right here, and it is an orange wire with a pink trace, and it's on this row of pins, and it's the fourth one up from the bottom, right where the arrow is. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you in the vehicle where that is, and we can connect our trunk or hatch release wire directly to this connection because it is a negative trigger. Okay, we're at the BCM here. Right here we have two plugs. There's a top plug and a bottom plug here. Our target wire is in the top plug, or the 26-pin plug, and again, it was orange with a pink trace. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull this orange with a pink trace out right here so we can get to it. And again, if you count up 4 pins on the side that's closest to me, the rows that are closest to me, 4 pins up from the bottom, you will see this wire. We're going to use our regular test light. When I probe this wire, the hatch will release. But 2 things have to be in order here. The doors have to be unlocked. The doors cannot be locked or the hatch won't release. And if the hatch is already released, when you probe it, it will not release again or you will not hear anything. The hatch has to be closed when you test it. So we have our hatch closed. We're going to apply a negative, or we're going to ground this wire with our test light. And I hear the hatch open, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to connect our brown wire from our Crime Stopper directly to this connection. Okay, we have our connection to the hatch release done. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to show you how it works. Okay, before deciding whether or not you're going to use a module, this test should be performed. We lock the doors with the OEM remote. Look on the dash for any blinking lights. A blinking red light would indicate that the vehicle has a content alarm. If you have the blinking light, it will blink rapidly in the beginning, and then the light will slow down and pulse slowly. We're going to wait about 2 minutes, and then we would reach through the window and unlock the door like this and open the door. If an alarm goes off, you have a content alarm, and then I would suggest using a module. The resistance values that control the locks also arm and disarm the alarm, and I've wrestled with these vehicles quite a bit in the shop trying to not use a module and save money. So this would be the determining factor. If you have a gray key, you're also going to want to use a module. But these black keys, 2003 and 4, you can get by without using any type of module. I'm going to show you how it works, and this is without a module. So we're going to lock the doors with our remote. We want to hear it. We lock it twice. It'll give a horn honk. We're going to unlock the doors. One press will unlock both doors. Pressing the button again will give us a 2 honk confirmation. Our parking lights on the vehicle will also stay on for 30 seconds, lighting our way to the vehicle. When we lock the vehicle, they'll blink once. When we unlock, they blink twice and stay on for 30 seconds. There's a panic feature. Pressing and holding the lock button will activate a panic. Pressing either lock or unlock after that will shut the panic off. To release the rear hatch, we press and hold the hatch release button. Well, but first the doors must be unlocked. This is a great safety feature to keep you from popping the hatch accidentally. So you must have the doors unlocked to be able to release the hatch. There is a setting on the Crime Stopper that can make the doors unlock automatically when you press the trunk release. I like the fact that the hatch won't release unless the doors are unlocked. That means you cannot release your hatch accidentally from a long distance. Okay, now we're going to trigger our remote starting feature. We're going to press our button with the key for 3 seconds and let it up. The parking lights are going to come on, giving us a visual indication the vehicle has received the signal. The vehicle is going to crank start and run for 20 minutes. We'll be able to operate our locks, our hatch release, and we can also shut the vehicle off, and we have our panic feature active. If we're using a module and we're doing, the keyless entry and everything, the functionality is going to be basically the same. The module may turn on your lights when you disarm it in the front, your headlights, whereas this setup will only turn on your parking lights. Let me give you a look at all the connections again. Horn wire, black with a red trace. Brake wire, white with a tan trace. Constant power, pink with black. Constant power, red. Parking lights, green with orange. You're going to watch this connection because it varies between years. All Liberties are not green with orange on the parking lights. It's going to change on the newer model years. Yellow, starter wire. Red with a blue trace, ignition 1. Black with an orange trace, accessory. Ignition 2 is not used. J1850 at the diagnostic, yellow with violet. Analog lock wire, pink with violet. Lock motor wire, orange with black. Hatch release wire, hard to see. Down in there would be orange with pink. And this is what our job looks like when it's done. We're ready to reassemble the vehicle.